will respond. Well, Downing Street said tonight that Rishi Sunak and the Israeli Prime Minister have spoken. It took some time. Mr. Sunak said he'd warned his Israeli counterpart against any further significant escalation in response. Joining me tonight, Dan Arbel. He's a scholar in residence at the Centre for Israeli Studies at the American University. He was also the former Deputy Chief of Mission at Israel's embassy in Washington. You're very welcome to the programme. Thank you for being with us. The Biden administration was again pointing to the success of the weekend's defence. 99% of the drones and missiles taken out. One source from within the administration said that as far as they're concerned, equilibrium has been re-established. Is that wishful thinking, do you think?
I think so. I think that they do want to highlight the fact that Israel came almost unscathed from this attack and actually scored a Pyrrhic victory vis-a-vis Iran. But I think that the administration is under no illusion that Israel will not respond. I think that they do expect Israel to respond, but they hope, and they're sending strong messages to Israel to respond in a proportionate way, or in a way that would not lead to further escalation, but widen the conflict, and certainly will not drag the U.S. into this confrontation. What
we're getting from John Kirby, the national security spokesman, is that it would be narrow in scope, kinetic, but limited. What does that look like to you? I mean, what sort of options then are on the table?
Look, I think that there's a variety of options for Israel, but I think that Israel, first of all, to strike neighboring Iranian targets like in Lebanon or in Syria or in Iraq. But I think that Israel will want to send a clear message as Iran attacked Israeli soil from Iranian soil. Israel will want to send a message of a clear, direct attack on an Iranian target inside Iran. And I think, therefore, it could be some facility somewhere in Iran, which is a military facility, a defense facility, but will raise no questions as to the fact that Israel actually conducted a strike inside Iran.
Yeah, I mean, the core of the decision-making within the War Cabinet is, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu, Benny Gantz and the Defence Minister. But there is a hard-right element within the Cabinet as well that demand a response from Mr Netanyahu. How much pressure is he under here, given the comment in the Israeli press that the deterrence is diminished?
I think you're absolutely right. I think that Netanyahu is walking a very fine line here, thin line. On one hand, he wants to, of course, not to have this escalate, and wants this Israeli response to be enough to suffice and not lead to an Iranian retaliation. At the same time, his constituency, his political base, is demanding stronger and more effective targeting. And I think that he's in that way, he's kind of in a bind in balancing between those demands and what the international community is expecting of him. But I don't think that these voices will prevail. And I think at the end, Netanyahu's decision will be more cool-headed and will be more leaning towards a limited response and to an all-out response like the right-wing far-right is demanding.
It's taken Rishi Sunak nearly 72 hours to get a look in. They did finally speak this afternoon amid the speculation he was being avoided. I mean, the speculation would be that, of course, Mr Netanyahu wants the freedom to make his own choices. But I wonder what would happen were they to make were this to be a sizable response and the White House and Downing Street were not informed beforehand. What might happen then?
I just it's hard for me to imagine that the U.S. would not be in the loop, and neither would the British Prime Minister. I think that they would be made aware of Israel's intentions and the scope that Israel intends to respond in, because if it doesn't, first of all, it puts U.S. personnel, British personnel, and others in the region in great danger, as can be seen as colluding with Israel, as playing a part in the Israeli attack. So I don't think that Netanyahu wants to jeopardize in any way his relations with the U.S. nor with the U.K. And therefore, I think he will be act very responsibly in updating both countries, and also making sure, perhaps not to the exact specifics of the operation, but to the general nature and scope of what he plans to do.
On the other side, we're told there's been a meeting today between the Iranians and the Russians. How precarious do you think the situation is at the moment? I mean, what is the level of risk that we're looking at?
I'm sorry, you muted during. Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, I was just mentioning the meeting today between the Iranians and the Russians, more closely aligned, of course, than they were previously. I just wonder what the scale of the risk is in mind of that developing relationship.
Well, this relationship has been ongoing and taking place and developing for over time, especially since 2015, when both countries became heavily involved in Syria. And Iran is supplying Russia with drones, and Russia is helping Iran in armaments. So certainly, it's very concerning. Certainly, this could lead to further escalations. Tomorrow, the U.S. Congress is holding a special hearing to focus on the Russian-Iranian relationship. So definitely, this should be on the radars of everyone, of this intensifying cooperation and security coordination between Russia and Iran.
Dan Arbel, very grateful for your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.